Again, I'm going to kind of go fairly quickly with the setup of the whole UI and the storyboard layout. So if I do go too quickly and you need me to slow down, please let me know. Like I said, in this first part, we're basically just going to be setting up the storyboard, creating the core data model, creating the core data stack, and we may implement multiple manage object contexts for tomorrow just to prepare that. We're going to create the convenience initializer, and if we have time, maybe we'll create the fetch results controller and throw in those delegates in the table view as well. So if everyone's ready, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and got my words confused. I'm going to pull out a table view controller. I'm going to go ahead and embed that in the navigation controller. And I'm going to make sure this navigation controller is the initial view controller. I'm going to click this. I'm going to give this title of list. We're making a Harry Potter spell app, so I'm going to say list of spells. This is where our spells will be listed. I'm going to click this cell and just give it a identifier and call it spell cell. And I'm going to drag out a view controller. This is going to be our detail view, as well as our view controller to add new spells. I'm actually going to go back in this table view, and I'm going to add a bar button item. And it's just going to be of type add. System item add. Now we're going to make two segues. We're going to make one from the cell, control drag from the cell, show. We'll call this show spell segue. And then we'll control drag from this as well. Show, and I'll call this add spell segue. I'm going to go in here and just change colors. You guys don't have to do this, so I'll do it fairly quickly. All right. I'm going to drag out a label. I'm going to make that label white just because of the color preference I chose. And I'm going to give it a bigger font size. Let's say maybe 30. I don't know if 35 is too big. No, it should be fine. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to type spell. We'll just call it spell. Yeah, I'll name. Be more clarifying. Now I'm going to drag out a text field. I'm going to shift click on both, embed these in a stack view. I'm then going to constrain that stack view, 20, 20, and I'll say 70 top. I'm going to give this a placeholder, their spell name. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, Command D to duplicate, drag it down, do the same thing with this one. Then also do the same exact thing. Embed it in a stack view, constrain the stack view. We're going to constrain it to the stack view that we just constrained. Should be fine. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to change this to threat level. I'm actually going to delete this. Let me go ahead and add a segment controller if it doesn't yell at me. All right, and I'm actually going to change this color just because the color I chose to white. There we go. Then I'm going to click here. I'm going to add one. So it should have 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Now on the first one here, I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to hit Control Command Spacebar. I'll put a little sick face. I'm going to go to the first one, which is the second one technically. Control Command Spacebar. Control Command Spacebar. And I'm going to add, if I can find him, the injured. This is going to go up from worst to death, I suppose you could say. So then this last one, we're going to say skull and crossbones for the really deadly spells. And I'm going to drag out another label. I'm going to make this fairly large, just for UI reasons. You don't have to follow along exactly how I'm doing this. It really doesn't matter all that much. As long as you have these UI elements so we can connect them in our subclass files. And here I'm going to call this spell information, or yeah, spell information. I'll just call it spell details actually. And I'll move that right here. And then I'll just constrain that. Your constraints don't have to be perfect. We're just trying to kind of get through this. Is that not right in the middle? All right. There we go. Close enough. Constrain it. All right, now we're going to add a text view. I'm just going to stretch this out just because it makes it easier for me. Not too big, so we're going to add a button at the bottom. Go ahead and constrain that text view, 20, and then give it a height and width. And then I will delete this. You don't have to delete this text, but I just think it makes it look a bit cleaner. I'm just going to change this background color. And then I'm going to drag out a button. I'm going to make its background color green. Make its text color white. Stretch it out here. That should be good right there. Big enough for the user to click on, not too big it's in their way. Let's go ahead and actually I'm going to give that a, it's always good to give it kind of a bold, I think it just looks better. Kind of gives it more of a alert style sense. So we're also going to constrain that button. So I'm going to say 140, 140, 45, width and a height. All right, I'll give you guys a second to kind of get that filled out. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create our subclass files. And I've already created groups for you guys in this kind of starter project. So we're just going to go, we're going to click on the view controllers. We're going to hit new file. You can command in as well if you'd like. Cocoa touch class, view controller, and I'll call this spell detail view controller. That's for the detail. Hit create. Do the same thing again for the table view. Cocoa touch class, table view controller, UI table view controller. And we'll call this spell list table view controller. Now we'll go back to the storyboard, hook up our elements, and we'll hit option click, wrong one. And you guys can just connect the text field. Oh, after you give it its name. No point in creating those files if we don't give it the name. Spell detail, go over to table view here, spell list, table view, go back to the detail here, close that guy out, click the text field, control drag, and we'll call this spell name. We'll call this threat level, but I'm actually going to call this threat level segment controller so it doesn't get confused later on with our enum. And then I'm going to do it from the text view. call it spell info. I'll just call it spell details. And I'm going to connect an outlet. You guys don't have to do the outlet if you don't want it, just to make the border radius. But I'm also going to connect an action after that. Forgot to give the button a different name besides button. So we'll do that after. So I'm going to make that outlet. Then I'll make the action. Spell button tapped. I'm going to close this out, open this back up, go back into the button. I'm going to say save spell. I'm going to go back into that detail view controller, and the view did load. I'm going to say save spell dot layer dot corner radius equals 25. Just going to give it the radius. If you didn't do that, it's not a big deal. All right. So now what we want to do is kind of get into some of the core data stuff. So first we're going to, let me get my pen to start marking off stuff here. So now we've set up the storyboard. We're going to create the core data model. So first we're going to go to our models, just get a new file, and go down to core data, data model. Hit next, but don't hit next too quickly. Let's call this spell with an S. Let's go ahead and add the entity, which is going to be a spell. Let's add our model. And since we're going to do data migration tomorrow, today we're only going to do the details, name, and threat level. So I'm going to say spell name, but it's going to be name. It's going to be of type string. Threat level, type string. And we're going to go details of type string. I'll give you guys a second. Next thing we're going to do is create our core data stack. So let's go back into our models. Let's do a new file. SWF file, core data stack. I'm going to do something that may make a lot of you guys happier, because I'm not going to type all this out. You guys have typed this out 4 or 5 times this week. You guys should know what's going on here, and I'll go over it either way. So if you don't have this, let me know, and I'll post it in the iOS 13 After Hours channel if you're following along. And once you post that, make a code snippet of it. And before you make a code snippet, I decided deleting this, because you're going to have to go in there anyways and replace that. It's just when I created the code snippet, I didn't remove that tasks.
Yeah, could you copy that? Yeah, for me, please.
Yeah, no worries. So it's going to be called the core data stack simple. That's what I called mine. This is without the multiple manage object context, and I'll show you guys both of them, and you can save both of them, because as Ben said, you guys will be using this quite often. So let me go ahead and put this in the iOS 13 channel, After Hours channel. And be warned, this does paste kind of funky sometimes when you're pulling it straight from Slack. So is everybody ready to continue with this? All right, so as you guys can see, and maybe this is basically why I wanted you guys to see that visualization by Spencer. As you guys can see, you can maybe start seeing this better in your head with the container being set up, and then we have the persistent store inside of there being set up, and it's going to look for the error. And if it can find the error, we're just going to get out of there. Then we're going to return the container out of that computed property. Then we're going to go into the main context. We're going to have that be also computed property. That's just going to return the container's view context. Oh, I thought I gave you guys the wrong one. No, that's the right one. And then we're going to have a function that's going to say to persistent store. And as you see in the do, try, catch, so it says it's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to try the main context.save. If it can't do that, it's going to catch that error, and then it's going to reset the context. And maybe this will make it a lot easier for you guys, just because I'm also coming from this point of view of a student. It's only 3 things. So you only have the computed property for the persistence container. Then you have the computed property for the main context. And you just have that method to say to persistent store. So I don't think it's too difficult to sort of go over this again and again and again, and then really drill it in your head. Like I've said, it's not too many lines of code. And again, like Ben in the instructor has been saying, it will usually follow the same protocol when you're using core data, except usually you'll most likely use multiple managed object contexts to sort of have that thread safety and avoid concurrency and all that. So, and again, any questions you guys really have that you may think are maybe too difficult to answer for yourselves or ask your peers or your TLs, definitely ask Ben tomorrow in the Slido. That's why he's having this Q&A tomorrow to really kind of touch base on a lot of this stuff that may seem a bit fuzzy before the sprint challenge. But you guys know when I do these after hours, what I want to show you is how kind of quickly you can do this stuff once you have the repetitions in. And it's all about just repetitions and understanding what's really going into this code, not just the copying and pasting of it. You know, I want to be able to have each of you write this on a whiteboard if I asked you to a month from now, similar to how I could do it, just because it's literally burned in my brain so many times I can't get it out, even if I paid someone to get it out. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to create that convenience initializer. So again, let's just go into our models here. New file. Swift file. And I'll call this spell plus convenience. Give you a second to get that open. Then tomorrow we'll come back in here with the representation and add this in as well. Because again, tomorrow we're going to be doing more of the cloud sync stuff with this part too. And I think doing in 2 tandem parts like this will really sort of make sense of like, here's the regular way without cloud sync, and then here's sort of the rest of it. And 99% of the time you guys will use cloud sync. There's just, you know, why not? Especially with build week projects and all that. So, all right, so next thing we want to do is we want to make an enum for our threat level. So let's first import core data. And we'll say enum threat level. We want this to be both codable and case iterable. So we'll go through the cases of it. We'll say case, case, case. Go here, do the control command spacebar. Add your faces. Control command spacebar. Add your faces. Make sure they match. Control command spacebar and add your faces. All right. All right, it's supposed to be string. Okay, so now we're going to make an extension on our core data model. And it's not sepal. It's not spells either. It's just spell. It's just the model. It's not the folder. And again, I'm saying a lot of this stuff maybe isn't confusing to you guys, but when I first started, some of this stuff was extra confusing to me, or it just didn't make sense why. So in here, we're just going to add that convenience initializer. So let's go ahead and say at discardable result. Discardable result. Convenience, let it type it out for you. Initializer. And then we're going to pass in the name. Type string. the details of type string. We're also going to pass in the threat level, and that's going to be of that enum type. So it's going to be threat level, just type threat level, just like that. Then we're also going to add the context. So we're going to say context, ns manage object context. And then all we need to do is initialize. So we're going to say self.init the context. Go ahead and initialize that context.
I'm getting an error on the threat level enum.
You probably have codable there still, do you?
No, I got string and case iterable, but it's saying expected identifier where I've got the emojis. Like it doesn't like that for a case. The first one's fine.
Did you put a space?
Yeah, the first one's fine, but then it didn't like the sad face for some reason.
Oh, that is weird. Usually this is what I tend to use.
Huh.
So if anything, we'll just take a look at the end. It shouldn't be too big of an issue, probably something small.
Sure.
So then let's just go in here and we'll say, again, self.name equals name. And if anyone else having problems along the way, definitely let me know. Self.details equals details. Then we'll do the self.threat level equals threat level.
It's fine now. It just for some reason didn't like the sad face emoji. I guess it's not in the character map.
Yeah, it doesn't always put a bright look on people's faces. Computers can be biased too. So let's go ahead and say threat level equals that threat level's raw value. Otherwise, it's going to yell at you. And again, tomorrow we'll come in here and we'll add the computer property for the spell representation. You know, we unwrap that and then return the spell representation. And then we're going to add the convenience initializer for that representation that's also going to pass in the context and initialize that. So again, we'll leave that for tomorrow. We'll just kind of do what we're doing today. And I'll give you guys a second to fill this out. Making good headway. We got about 20 minutes left. So then we're going to go into the spell list table view controller. And you can delete the view did load. Then we're going to go ahead and pass in our spell controller. So I'll say var spell controller. We haven't made the spell controller, have we? No, we have not. All right, well, that's also tomorrow. But I won't make you guys do it. We'll just say that for tomorrow. All right, so let's go ahead and add the fetch results controller in there. So I'm going to say lazy var, just like that, and then we'll say fetch results controller. And that's going to be of type ns fetch results controller. As repetitive that sounds. ns fetch results controller. That's because I didn't import core data. Remember to import core data. Okay, now it should be the ns fetch results controller. There we go. We're going to pass the value of that spell. It's probably going to yell at you if you don't add the initializer, so we'll just go ahead and do that. Now we'll say, let's go ahead and create the fetch request. So I'm going to make some comments here. I'm going to say, let's go ahead and create the fetch request. It's probably simple enough to. So we'll say let fetch request of type ns fetch request. And again, we're going to pass in that spell. And it's going to equal the spell's fetch request. capital. Let's go ahead and, yeah, I suppose we can do that. Let's go ahead and sort the fetch results. So I'm going to add that comment as well. Sort the fetched results. We're going to say fetch request.sort descriptors. Then what we're going to say is it's going to equal, and you can open up your array brackets. Then we're going to put inside of here, so we're going to say an ns sort descriptor with the key. ns sort descriptor, key. And let's just go ahead and give it that threat level. We'll just sort it by the threat level. And for ascending, we'll just put true. And let's go ahead and say let frc, and the frc is going to equal the ns fetch results controller. Then the ns fetch results controller, we're going to pass in that fetch request. So I'll say fetch request, pass in the fetch request. And after that, we're going to pass in the manage object context. And that's going to be of type, well, it's going to be of type our core data stack dot share main context. And we'll go ahead and pass in those section name key paths as well. So we'll say section name, I think it's key path. And then we'll just pass in the threat level again. Oh, that's right. Let's go ahead and give it the cache. I call it cache, I know it's cache. Cache, 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 nil, boom. Just like that. And let's go down here, and as I'm typing this out, I can assume you guys know what to do here. So it's going to yell at me. I'm assuming you guys know what this is from, right?
It hasn't conformed to the delegate.
And how do we do that, Toby?
We could either have an extension to the table view controller, or we could just add it next to the UI table view controller on line 12.
Exactly. Let's go ahead and add those delegates. So if you guys also haven't created the code snippet for this, for the delegates, let me know and I'll paste that. All you have to do is change the name up here. So if you guys want me to post that, let me know. If not, we can just keep on moving.
Yeah, just do a quick copy and paste for me.
All right, no worries. I'll give you guys a second to get that as well, so I'll kind of leave it. Hope I copied that. I feel like I didn't copy that. All right, there we go. All right. So let's go back up. Now it should stop yelling at us. And it's going to yell at us for the return. Let's go ahead and do the do, try, catch. So we'll say do, try, catch. We're basically going to try the perform fetch. We're going to say try frc.perform fetch. Again, that throws, so let's go ahead and catch that error. So we'll say, we'll just give it a fatal error. So fatal error with a message inside, and we can say something like error performing fetch and then pass in the error. string interpolate error. And we'll go ahead and return that FRC so it stops yelling at us. We'll return the fetch results controller. Give you guys a second. 13 minutes out, we're making good time. Only got a little bit to go here. So in the view, so let's just go ahead and crank out some of the stuff that's going to be needed anyways. So let's go ahead and type out view will appear. View will appear, and then we'll add super dot view will appear animated. And we'll say table view dot reload data. Now let's start filling out some of these for the table view. So we'll say for the number of sections, we're going to return the fetch results controller dot sections. So we'll say fetch results controller dot sections, and then the count of that. And if we can't get anything, then we'll just nil coalesce to 0. And then in the number of rows and sections, we're going to grab the fetch results controller again with the section. So we'll say fetch results controller sections. And then we'll go ahead and grab that exact section and the number of objects in it. So we'll say dot number of objects. And again, we can also nil coalesce, just give it 0 in case there's nothing in there. Now we do the cell for row at. We already know what we called that cell. We called it spell cell. Spell cell, soft cell. Great song. And then we'll configure the cell. So we'll go ahead and say let spell equal the fetch results controller object, I believe. Yes, at the index path. And then we'll say cell.textLabel.text. And that's going to be equal to that spell name. I don't know why it's not adding my question marks for me. And then we'll do the same thing for the text color, but instead of giving it the spell name, we'll just give it a text color. Text color. It's not white. This is only because of my background. Don't do this if your background is white. It's not going to show up. Then we'll return the cell. And we'll do the title for header and section. So I'll go ahead and delete this. Type out title for header and section. And we'll go ahead and unwrap that section info from this fetch results controller. So we'll say guardlet section info. And we're basically just going to get the fetch results controller with sections again. So we'll say fetch results controller dot sections. Pass in that section. And we just want to return nil if anything else. Give myself some space here. You see when I just hit return, hit Command B, it's going to yell at me. Most likely, yes. Non-void function to return a value. All right, you want a value? I'll give you a value. Give you a value nil. Right there, boom. And then we're going to return that section info.name.capitalized. So we're going to say return section info .name capitalized. All right. And we're not going to do the editing style till tomorrow. So, but I will comment this out. Uncomment this out. And we'll come in here tomorrow and fill the rest of this out. with a lot of the denser stuff. Just making sure everything's prepared so we can get into the API controller tomorrow. All right, and the last thing to do here with 9 minutes remaining is to do the segues. So let's go ahead and find our segues. That's a lot of comments for a segue. So go ahead and delete all that. And I'm sure you guys know what to do in here. We'll do it together. So we'll say if the segue identifier is equal to, again, I always forget to show spell segue. And we're going to go back and check just to make sure, because again, let me grab the wrong thing. We're going to say get the detail VC. So we'll say if let detail VC, so it should be a capital VC equals to segue.destination. Go ahead and downcast after that, not description, destination, downcast. And we're going to go ahead and downcast that as the spell detail view controller. And what we're also going to do is get the index path. So we're going to say let index path equals the table view index path for selected row. Let index path for selected row. We'll say, let me give myself some space here. Let spell, go ahead and grab the fetch results controller. And it's going to be the object at that index path. Then we're going to say detail vc.spell equals cell, but it's going to yell at us. Detail vc dot spell equals spell. I'm going to go back and let's go into the detail view controller here and just add this so it stops yelling at us. Give you guys a second. Sorry if I'm going a bit fast. So go ahead and say var spell. Spell. Back in the list tail view controller, Command B. And then all we need is the API controller. We don't have the API controller yet, so that is fine. Maybe I should just put it in there and then we'll uncomment it tomorrow. Yeah, let's just put it in there and then we'll uncomment it tomorrow. We don't have to come back and add more work for ourselves. So we'll go ahead and say detail vc.spell controller. It's not going to give it to you unless you add a fake one. Then we'll just say equals the spell controller and then just comment it out. I'm going to go above here. A2. All right, so how's everybody feeling about that? Good, good, nice.
Good, good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
All right, so we only had an hour to do this, and we did it just in time, 5 minutes remaining. So in that hour, we set up that entire storyboard, which took way too long. Again, you know how I am with these storyboards. If I were you, I would not, kind of make it pretty. Come back at the end and make it pretty. Just make it work first. Throw on some labels and some text fields and some text views. So if we didn't spend that time on the storyboard, you can imagine how quickly we could have gotten this far in our project. And again, tomorrow, the only thing that's remaining is to make that API controller. We're going to do some data migration. We're going to go into the detail view controller. And I'm also going to do obviously creating the Firebase. Each of you guys will individually create your own Firebase to sort of go to and put to and all that. You really see it update live. So tomorrow we'll wrap that up. And that way also, hopefully for the sprint challenge, you guys will sort of have this tandem knowledge ready to go and it's not faded away if we were to do this on Tuesday or whatever it may be. If you guys want me to go in the core data stack and add just the simple line it takes to do the multiple managed object context, since you guys will be doing that tomorrow, I can tonight. But it's definitely not necessary because we can just do that tomorrow. Does anyone have any particular questions before we sort of end this out and continue on for tomorrow?
There's only one or two things that kind of got lost on, but I was just wondering if you could just zip it up, this one, and pass it on over in the Slack channel, so I could take a look at it and just can to see which parts I'm missing on.
Yeah, no worries. Absolutely. So if that's the only question you have, I'll just kind of end it here. And this is part 1, so I'll put this recording in the After Hours channel.